My toxic sister lied to her fiance that she was infertile, so I told him about her secret baby. My mom remarried when I was 3 years old. Even though he's technically my stepfather, that's the man I called dad my whole life and consider my father. He had my mother had my sister Sarah 2 years later. My dad never treated me any differently from Sarah. I never felt like she was more his kid than I was or anything like that. My mother, meanwhile, for some reason always favored Sarah and let her get away with murder our whole childhood. Like when we both got busted for skipping school to go to the mall when we were teenagers, I was the only one who got grounded because I was the oldest, so I was automatically the mastermind, even though I'd only gone along with it because Sarah begged me. Sarah constantly borrowed my clothes and never returned them, and my mom would tell me that maybe I just lost them. Stuff like that. My dad would often be the one to stand up to me and tell my mother that she wasn't being fair, which is probably why he and Sarah's relationship was always strained compared to his and mine. It also didn't help that when we were in high school, Sarah got pregnant. My parents tried to talk to her about having it taken care of, but Sarah gave this endless speech about how she wouldn't let them influence her into being a life ender, so she had the baby and gave him up for adoption. I know it was a hard time for her and I tried to be there for her, but she completely shut me out and refused to talk about it, so eventually I just went along with the rest of the family and pretending it never happened. Sarah and I are both in our 30s now. We're not close, but our mother passed away a few years ago, and since then we've made an effort to get along for our father's sake. Recently, my husband and I went out to dinner with her and her boyfriend, and they announced that they were engaged. While we were congratulating them, her fiancé started telling us about how he knew Sarah was the one because he still wanted to be with her even after he found out that it meant he'd never had children, when he'd always dreamed of being a dad. I started to say, "Oh, Sarah, you don't want kids?" But before I could get the words out, she stomped on my foot under the table. A few minutes later she excused herself to the bathroom, and I followed her. While she was fixing her lipstick I said, "So you're not going to have kids?" And she said, casually, "He thinks I'm infertile." I asked why on earth he would think that, and she said, "The last thing I want to do is have a brat ruining our lives." So I told him I was born unable to have kids and there's nothing they can do about it. I'll just take birth control forever, it's fine. I couldn't believe she was starting her engagement off with a lie. I ranted to my husband about it on the way home and he agreed with me that it was a skeezy thing for her to do, but said that it wasn't really our place to interfere since it's not like we were close to Sarah's boyfriend, so I let it go. A few months later, our dad sadly passed away. I was devastated and had to take some time off work to deal with my grief, but the day after his funeral, Sarah called me. She said she wanted to let me know that she was going to be contesting our dad's inheritance. She said she'd been talking to a lawyer since our mother's death who said that she had a case to inherit all of our father's money and, therefore, everything he'd gotten from my mother's death because I wasn't his real daughter. I couldn't believe that she had been planning something so evil for so long and that she would have the audacity to call me about it before our father's body was even cold. Before I could stop myself, or my husband could stop me, I got in my car and drove straight to her house. Her fiancé answered the door and asked me what was wrong. Sarah appeared over his shoulder and tried to tell me to leave, but I said, "I just thought that, considering biology is so important to you, your boyfriend should know about who your inheritance will be going to." And I told him all about how her definitely not infertile but had a baby out there she'd never told him about. I said, "She's perfectly capable of having babies, she just doesn't want to have them with you." Sarah screamed at me, calling me a life ruiner and begging her boyfriend not to listen to me. But as I walked away from the house, he was telling her that he was done.